As we have been able to bring to you, you are seeing the first plane arriving in the Indira Gandhi International Airport just now, and the first of the most sought after citizens of the last 8 days are about to come out.
On December 24th, 1999, Indian Airlines flight IC-814 departed from Kathmandu, Nepal, bound for Delhi, India. For the 176 passengers on board, the flight was meant to be routine. But just minutes after entering Indian airspace, the aircraft was hijacked by 5 armed men from the Pakistan-based terrorist group Harkat-ul-Mujahideen. What would follow was a tense, week-long ordeal that gripped the world and would send shockwaves through India.
नालायक जो सिक्योरिटी है उसका जो खमियाना है वो जनता भुगत रही है, चाहे नेपाल की है चाहे हिंदुस्तान की है, गलती तो है ही है ना किसी की। और इसलिए मैं तो इस विषय में ज़्यादा कुछ नहीं कहना चाहता जब तक मेरे बच्चे या मेरे भतीजे सामने नहीं आ जाए। इस विषय में मैं आपको ज़्यादा बात बताकर।
Under the demands of the hijackers, the flight was diverted multiple times. It first went to Amritsar, followed by Lahore, Dubai, and then finally Kandahar, Afghanistan, where it then was faced with various rounds of negotiations between the hijackers, the Taliban, and the Indian government. The crisis ultimately ended with the release of 3 high-profile terrorists from Indian prisons in return for the hostages aboard the plane, a decision that would prove to have lasting consequences for both India and the world. The IC-814 hijacking exposed multiple failures in the Indian government's response, starting with their inability to take responsible and decisive action when possible, and exacerbated by their international isolation that limited their rights and support from others. When governments fail to take responsibility, they lose the right to save their people. The IC-814 hijacking took place during a shaky and politically unstable period in India's history. In May of 1998, India conducted a series of nuclear experiments known as the Pokhran-2 tests, marking a dramatic shift for a nation that had previously advocated for a nuclear weapon-free world. The global reaction toward these tests were, as expected, quite severe, with many nations imposing economic and militaristic sanctions upon India.
Just last week, India conducted a series of nuclear explosive tests, reminding us that technology is not always a force for good. India's action threatens the stability of Asia and challenges the firm international consensus to stop all nuclear testing.
Following this, in May of 1999, tensions between India and Pakistan escalated into the Kargil War, a brutal conflict over the disputed Kashmir region. Pakistani forces unlawfully crossed the line of control and seized Indian territory, prompting a fierce military response. Although India ultimately emerged victorious, forcing Pakistan to retreat amidst political backlash, victory was short-lived. Diplomatic tensions between the two nations had only increased to new levels. The political issues surrounding India during the time of the hijacking hindered them from acquiring foreign help to resolve the crisis. As said by Ajit Doval, "We tried to prevail on the Americans to put pressure on the UAE to allow us a raid, but India found itself isolated internationally. Nothing seemed to be going our way. India was essentially isolated on the global stage."
I mean, the complexity of Indian-Pakistani relations and the fact that the Kargil war had just happened, that there were the nuclear strains between the two, was really a very profound additional complication.
The IC-814 hijacking had lasting effects on India's security policies and global diplomacy. As said by Jaswant Singh, "We took a painful decision under extraordinary circumstances to save innocent lives, but it came at a cost we still live with today." First off, releasing 3 terrorists in exchange for the hostages set a dangerous precedent, undermining security and encouraging future attacks. Among the men freed was Masood Azhar, who later founded the jihadist group Jaish-e-Mohammed. This group has been responsible for major attacks like the 2001 Indian Parliament assault and the 2019 Pulwama bombing, which, including other acts, have resulted in the loss of lives of many individuals globally. The aftermath of the hijacking also exposed failures in both international responsibility and diplomacy. Nepal was criticized for weak airport security in Kathmandu, leading to a 5-month Indian flight ban until measures were reassessed. Also, Pakistan's refusal to extradite the hijackers and their alleged support for their actions through their intelligence agency further strained India-Pakistan relations. India's push for Pakistan to be labeled as a terrorist state greatly intensified. Although the hijacking was a national trauma, it spurred crucial reforms in India's security infrastructure. Major changes such as the introduction of air marshals on flights and CISF officers at security checkpoints have deterred any major hijacking-related incident from occurring on Indian soil since. The IC-814 hijacking exposed the cost of failing to take responsibility, but it also showed how the right responsibility can lead to outcomes that strengthen instead of harm. The IC-814 hijacking was a crisis marked by a lack of initial responsibility that would in turn lead to a lack of the rights needed to stop the crisis efficiently. As said by former Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee, the hijacking of IC-814 has been a turning point for us. While we tried everything to protect the lives of the passengers, we acknowledge that the handling of the situation, particularly at the initial stages, could have been better. The first major failure in responsibility occurred when the hijacked aircraft landed in Amritsar. Indian authorities hesitated to take any decisive action, largely due to a lack of communication between the federal and state governments. Confusion over who held authority delayed critical decisions, allowing the plane to refuel and take off. This missed opportunity to resolve the issue on Indian soil escalated the crisis into an international matter, creating a more complex situation.
So, well, I think the biggest mistake is that the Indian government wasn't prepared, and when the plane was at Amritsar, that was when they should have taken, if they were going to take forcible action, that's when it could have been done. Once it left Indian airspace, it was just impossible.
The Indian government also failed their responsibility to properly inform the nation of the situation at hand. They were struggling to maintain public trust. As the hours turned into days, the families of the passengers became increasingly frustrated by the lack of communication and updates. Protests erupted across the country as relatives across the board demanded updates and accountability. The government, already grappling with the complex international side of the crisis, now faced mounting internal pressure, adding to the chaos of the ordeal.
We are moving and groping in the dark. Pompous statements are being made about the greatness, when the fact lies it was a absolute security lapse.
हिंदुस्तानियों के लिए, हमारी पब्लिक के लिए हिंदुस्तान क्या कर रहा है?
So you have to do something. She's a doctor. Look at her. She's a doctor. I'm a surgeon. We are the backbone of this country. We are the middle class.
When the plane finally landed in Kandahar, Afghanistan, the situation grew to be even more dire. The Indian government, facing international isolation, was forced to accept the aid of the Taliban, which resulted in a poor handling of the event. They were denied the right to speak directly with the hijackers, and they were denied the right to take any form of military action. Because of this lack of the right to action, the situation was basically in the hands of the Taliban, which would end up concluding the ordeal but allowing 3 dangerous terrorists to be released from prisons and the actual hijackers to escape without prosecution.
The Indian government, having missed the opportunity in Amritsar, it had no choice but to negotiate. I mean, you can't consign your citizens, especially innocent airline travelers, to death.
The IC-814 hijacking became a devastating crisis due to India's slow response, lack of transparency, and restrictions on rights in foreign territory. This tragedy serves as a painful reminder of the high cost of hesitation in times of crisis. When leaders fail, lives are shattered, and a nation's trust is broken.